But she slays in this, though. She is really good.
Very adamant that people need to take responsibility for their own actions. So when it relates to women, it's not really an excuse to say, oh, well, feminism brainwashed me. You still made the decision to sleep around. You still made the decision to get an
Yeah,
abortion.
I think if you get an abortion, you're responsible.
Okay.
Right?
Shouldn't we have that same standard when it comes to
I will agree with her there. There is a more, don't be mad at me. Take this up with God, the Most High. God gave women a hell of a responsibility. Tim joked about, a woman made the guy with the funny mustache. Yeah, a woman did. And I don't want to get into that debate there, but if you look at people who you might view as good or bad, they were created by women. I mean, it takes a man and a woman, but a woman is literally the one bearing the child out. There's an extra responsibility there. The man's responsibility in society, and they're going to get into it, is outside of that. And what's happened is the government has stepped in, and now the government's responsible for the protection. The government's responsible for the paycheck. That it stepped in, and now the man's role has kind of fallen off, and everything, that slippery slope has really begun. This is a good part of the discussion here.
the rapists, the men? You made a decision, you're responsible. It's not really like, oh, but my single mother. Like many people have.
And they are responsible. They go to jail for it. But you have to look at, there's significant differences between single mother and single father homes. And I can't help but notice that all of the men that seem to lack morals, they were raised by a woman.
Right, but is the answer then that evil comes from women? We are kind of leaving out the fact that, yeah, a man actually left the parent or his family in that situation.
Well,
there are some situations where a woman doesn't.
Yeah, so for me, it's easy to separate kind of the nonsense from the good stuff. Evil comes from women. That's not a statement that I don't understand that statement. Absolutely not.
Want the man
But
there,
most of the time men don't leave. Women are the ones that overwhelmingly leave. And if you really dig it, if you actually do the work and interview men that are the known to be like deadbeat dads, most of the deadbeat dads don't really exist. They're exceptions. They're not the rule.
So,
and if you actually do the work and interview these guys, there's men that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for their kids. And unfortunately, we're in a society where women can claim abuse. You know, they can say he emotionally abused me and not see his kid for years.
Real quick, what's the stat? I know that there's stats on women initiating divorce more, but how do we say that, fatherlessness is predominantly driven by women? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because women are choosing to leave, and the number one reason is irreconcilable differences.
But that's when you're talking about single mothers who are a result of divorce. If we're looking at single mothers who were never actually married, it's not. It's a very different group of people.
But the whole point is women have all the power here. We have a million choice. You get to choose whether or not you get pregnant. Abortion's legal, so we are 100% in control of who's born. So there is zero excuse to make a kid.
She's coming from a UK standpoint.
With a guy that's not going to stick around. Zero excuse. None.
I mean, I would also say there's zero excuse for a guy to not stick around.
Well, but the issue you're getting is
because you're basically saying, but what about the women though? When we're talking about the man leaving,
but the difference is men cannot opt out of fatherhood. Women can opt out of motherhood.
And I think we would both agree that you should not be able to opt out of motherhood.
But
right?
we can, and it's not my point. But should whatever like abortion's legal. It's here to stay. Unfortunately, I don't say this because I'm happy about it, but I mean in the UK they're introducing a law where they want to make it legal up to birth. So abortion is legal. And right now, men are not able to opt out of fatherhood. Only women are.
Only socially, not physically. Women in the United States overwhelmingly have the right to abort.
Correct.
Or are allowed to abort. Men don't have any say whatsoever. But
See, I disagree. This is a good topic of discussion because men should be able to opt out. If there is an option in whatever state you're in for a woman to unlive her fetus, no matter what decision she chooses to make, a man should be able to go to, I hate daddy government, but go to daddy government and say, I'm opting out of this thing. You have to be able to. And, sometimes there's that situation where the man doesn't know. If the man doesn't know, you got to go through that whole thing. Did the man really not know or not? But there should be let's just assume the man knows. There should be a way to go to the state and say, I'm opting out of this thing. Because we're an abortion state, right? We're allowed to abandon the fetus. The woman is, so the man should be as well. I mean, I don't even know how you could disagree with that.
Socially, I looked it up it says, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20.2% of fathers, about 7 million, are absent dads. They don't live with their minor children. So
right, but why?
Right. So this stat doesn't literally mean 20% of fathers are like getting up and saying, later, kid, I'm going to buy scratchers and then disappearing. But my point was just that of this, you have men who are like, okay, you're having a kid, I'm leaving, you'll never see me again.
Well, but you don't understand the circumstances, because a lot of times women make men dads that don't want to be. They're like, this is something casual. This is, situationships are really common. They know that man will never commit to them, and yet they still make the choice to have his kid. I think in those situations, if we can legally opt out of motherhood, they should be able to legally opt out of fatherhood. We have all the power now. Don't make a kid with someone that doesn't want to be a father.
I see. You're saying
I think that applies equally to, and this is why I don't.
No, Pearl's right there. There's a extra responsibility on women for that specifically. That's not really something we can debate.
Don't advocate for promiscuity. Don't sleep with someone that you are not prepared to have a child with.
But what's happening
is what
that's like, this isn't a dream world, this isn't like Make-A-Wish, society promiscuity is going to go, it's not. But so I'm talking about what's happening. Go ahead.
Are you saying that a woman who sleeps, like, let's say a woman, we'll start light, she sleeps with a guy, gets pregnant, and then realizes this guy will leave her, doesn't want to be a dad. You're saying she should get an abortion?
I'm not saying should or shouldn't. I'm saying women have the choice to, right now. Men do not have the choice to opt out of fatherhood. Should or shouldn't, it's almost like, okay, I mean, this is where I get frustrated with conservatives.
She's going on a great rant here. I get frustrated with libertarians. That's why libertarians don't want Donald Trump to speak at the Libertarian, National Convention, because they're not living in the real world. The real world is nobody cares about your convention. As much as I like the Mises Caucus and all that, they understand that. They're not stupid. So they're like, okay, and wouldn't you love to have a seat if Donald Trump's speaking at whatever convention? Wouldn't you want the libertarians there? So you got the same thing with home court advantage. You're not living in the real world. We don't have an ANCAP society. So we got to live in the real world. Pearl's like, wait a second, live in the real world. It's a woman's responsibility. Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what I say. Women are going to abort their kids. It's not going to become illegal. So if we're in a society where we can legally not be mothers, if we don't want, why can't men legally not be fathers?
No, I get that. Yeah. But the question I'm thinking of is, you're putting a lot on women as those who are responsible for single parent, like single mothers. And what I'm trying to understand is, you're saying, because women can choose not to be a mother, you said something to this effect, and the guy can't, that means the woman has decided to have a child knowing the man will not be there.
At times, yes, at times.
So I guess my concern then is like,
well, knowing or not, it's your decision that you're making. You've got to make a decision. Do you think the man's going to be there or not?
Middle MAGA.